using terms like that. Dad talk, like the hey, time rock and or roll, or in this case, welcome to another episode of the Mercy Metrics podcast here at TigerMinerReport.com. I am Rogelio Castillo. Alongside me is Chris. Uper will be back shortly because he went to go change the camera angle and then all heck broke loose. So, but yeah, just wanted to. Well, everybody, happy New Year, everybody. Hopefully, you guys had a very good holidays season. And now there's winter is fully engaged here in Michigan. So it's a nice, balmy 26 degrees outside here. And there's Uper. Oh, yeah, just change the camera a little. Yeah, keep it going because you have a little bit of a, yeah, there we go.
Well, I like this. Just Uper After Dark.
What is that?
Uper through the peephole.
Yeah. I don't. Yeah, it's something. It's what do you have to the left of you or right of you? What is it? Oh, there he goes. Boom.
There it is.
Yeah.
Uper Shoe Diaries.
Okay.
Yeah. Deadly Ninja B says he's only here for Yoop. So
well, hey,
there you go.
It is what it is. I have some. That kind of magnetism.
So, of course, you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, listen to podcasts, and on Twitter at MCM Baseball Pod. And now we're part of the Believe Network. And I want to get this out of the way because there's a lot going on as far as betting action is concerned. And with Michigan being in a national championship on Monday, we'll talk about that briefly because why not? We never get to. The last time we were able to was when Chris and I were both in high school. So, this is a good opportunity. With the NFL playoffs right around the corner and the NBA in full swing, BetOnline has you covered with up-to-the-minute second odds, news, and scores. With additional odds, lines, trends, and info on both desktop and mobile, you can access the world's best wagering information online. Head there today to get into the action and see the updated odds. Remember to use the promo code BELIEVE, BLEAV, for your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet online when the game starts. So, yeah, Michigan is in the national championship.
Yeah, I didn't, growing up, Michigan was just always pretty damn good, right? Like in the 80s and 90s. And maybe that's not quite right. It was different back then. Like, they'd lose 2 games a year or whatever, but didn't have the BCS or the tournament. But then, Ohio State just dominated Michigan for damn near 20 years to the point where it was just like, yeah, they're never going to ever compete again. They're not going to be like they have no hope. You just kind of say goodbye. And so the last 3 years have been a lot of fun as a Michigan fan. I didn't think they could beat Alabama just because it's Alabama. And I'll be honest, like the Washington quarterback, Penix scares the hell out of me. He's the best quarterback they'll have faced all year.
Oh, yeah.
But, yeah, every 25 years I got a good buddy who's going there. He's going to Houston because you never know. 25, if it doesn't happen for another 25 years, we might not be in any condition to go to these games. So, yeah it's fun for Michigan fans, that's for sure.
It is amazing how. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Uper. No, go ahead.
To me, what Harbaugh has changed is they have gone back to some old school football where they dominate the line of scrimmage now on both sides, right? And that wasn't the case like through the, the Rich Rod era and Brady Hoke and so on. They were trying to fool people with running quarterbacks, and now they just pound people, and it's fun to watch. And that was really quite the game. I thought Alabama would beat them too, just based on history, but Michigan overcame all those crazy, maddening mistakes and got it done.
Yeah, I mean the punt. I don't know what's going on with special teams when you drop 2, one that led to a fumble, and then the one late in the game where they could have gotten safety. That would have been a whole different ball game. But the low snap really killed Alabama. I mean, that was ridiculous. So
that dude got broomed out immediately. He's in the transfer portal.
Yeah. Nick Saban's like. Nick Saban basically said to him, "If you even look at me, you're gone." And that's what happened. He looked up and he was gone.
I snap at you.
But I think all the people were right too. It's not just a couple of snaps that got away. He had many, many weak snaps that kind of followed up the timing of lots of plays. Which
the timing of that is so important. And I get my son playing flag football here again. and just trying to get anybody to get the timing right on any of these plays where there's motion and stuff. It's so much more complicated than it seems on TV. You're like, oh, that makes sense. It's game of inches as we talk about, but yeah, I don't know. It's the best year to be a football fan in the state of Michigan in many years, in decades.
Sure.
Now, unfortunately, our Michigan State friends, it hasn't been great for them, but they have a new coach who looks like a pretty good coach and seems like a good dude. So that hopefully brighter days for them. But the Lions haven't been good in 70 years or whatever. So it's a fun time for football.
For Michigan on Monday, when they see Michael Penix, you brought him up a second ago. That guy throws some of the most catchable looking passes you ever see. I mean, his receivers last week, they never had to like strain and stretch to catch anything. They were all just dropping right in the bucket. It was hilarious. That was impressive.
Yeah, he was talking about this with Chris the day of the game, just the amount of times where he can just throw it right in a win. I mean, literally, he could throw a dime 60 yards away into a bucket. That's how, that's how accurate he was throwing, and he definitely has a presence. But so let's talk some baseball. That's what we do. We are a baseball podcast, and so just some minor league news. The Tigers re-signed left-hander Andrew Vasquez to a minor league contract. He'll be invited to spring training. Some interesting news out of college baseball. The NCAA will now allow visiting teams during regionals and supers to be housed in dorms moving forward. Hotels now are an explicit requirement to host, which makes a lot of sense. But
yeah, I mean, I don't remember if there were some issues in the regionals last year, or I think it's come up before where some teams seem like they should be a 1 seed, but they don't get to host because they just don't have the infrastructure there. And who was it? I remember there was a team in the Midwest last year that couldn't host because there were also like track and field finals going on or something like that. There weren't enough hotel rooms. Was it Indiana State?
Yes, I was going to say it was in Indiana. It was Indiana State. You're totally right. Yep.
So that's good. College baseball is exciting. It'll be an interesting year in college baseball. There aren't like those massive stars that you sometimes get.
Right.
Cruz heading into last year was kind of the 1-1, and then Skeens erupted from out of nowhere. There's some talent out there. We've talked about Brody Breck before, right there in Youp's neck of the woods. Now he's got arguably the best arm in the draft. If he throws any amount of strikes, if he shows any improvement in strike throwing, he could go top 5. But there's not that no doubt guy yet this year.
The people in Iowa are excited. I was reading today, as a matter of fact, someone saying this is the biggest year, most anticipated year of Iowa baseball in a long time, because they got a couple arms that back up Brecht as well. So they think they're deep pitching and they're going to go places. We'll see. I would say the big star, maybe we'll see if Jack Caglione can do it again, right? And he could be the guy who really is the marquee attraction.
It's interesting to see Oregon State have another second baseman that could potentially be drafted high in Travis Bazzana, yeah. And even though Oregon State, although it's interesting, are they still in the Pac? Is the Pac-12 still a thing until this year?
I don't know what they're doing. It's the Pac-2, I think. Basically, it's Oregon State, Washington State.
Yeah, so I don't know. It's kind of crazy, or I don't know what's going on. I would have to look into that a little more, but yeah. And there's what is it? The Iowa. Yeah, you're right. Iowa's got some guys to look forward to. Cam Caminiti, by the way. I don't know if you guys saw that. He's a cousin.
A cousin of Ken Caminiti. Yeah, he's a left-handed pitcher, I think.
Yeah.
I think he was a 25, and I think he reclassified to 24.
Yeah. Speaking of things all college baseball, by the way, congratulations to a friend of the show, Ryan Sikowski, as he is now the director of Duke, or he's going to.
It was a really long title.
Yeah.
It sounded impressive because it was so long.
I thought it was like scouting data and analytics or something like rolling in a scouting role and a kind of using modern data techniques. But in any event, it's awesome. Brian's been one of the best public sources for draft information. Certainly a huge junior college guy, huge college guy, huge at Perfect Game, and it's awesome to see him, move into that private experience. Like we're bummed because we're going to lose him as a resource, but it's never bad when somebody like that gets to move up in their chosen field. And we said to him in our private chat, like it's my first reason ever to not hate Duke.
Yeah, I was just gonna say.
So
It's Brian. By the way, started as one of the original editors and founders of Motor City Bengals. So this is how far Brian's been doing this. Brian started his simple, humble beginnings in his beginning as a baseball blogger, and here he is now. I mean, that's to me, that's kind of inspiring for people out there. So when people are talking about pay their dues, Brian's paid his dues and then some. And it happened to a fellow CYO alumni. We both, like I said, it's still one of the strangest things in the world talking about our past and realizing that my baseball coach in junior high was his gym teacher in high school. And he went to a rival high school because he went to Gabriel Richard, where I went to Cabrini. And yeah, anyway, but Richard was a far better school anyway. Cabrini's, let's just say I'm not a big, I don't talk about my alumni too much. Let's just say that. Whatever. Anyway.
Brian was a great guest on the show too. A couple times I've been on. I just killed it every time.
Yeah. Brian has given us a lot of information, and he just got recently married, and he's celebrating a lot right now, but this is well earned. Seriously. He is one of the nicest guys. He's supported us since day one. He's spread the word about our podcast and the minor league report and everything. And anytime we have, we need, he's contributed to our Patreon. He's done all these little things that he doesn't have to do, and he does it anyway. So I owe a lot to Brian, a lot. Honestly, I sing his praises till Sikowski's he's the man.
Yeah, I remember our draft show. We were doing a live. I don't know, remember how long that was, 3.5, 4 hours. Right in the middle, I just kind of sent him a DM. I'm like, hey, you want to come on for a second? Because he had seen plenty of Max Clark and McGonigal and all that stuff, and he said, sure. Give me 10 minutes, and he came on right, and that was one of the busiest days of the year, but he made time for us, and so yeah. Best of luck to him, and hopefully, Duke goes on a nice little run here these next few years.
Yeah, I'll be rooting for Duke, but only in baseball. Basketball, looking, whatever. And actually, their football program's actually getting better too. So, but that's tobacco country. So it's a really cool part of the country too. I've always wanted to check out. But so a couple things I wanted to get to this evening. New Year's resolutions, of course. Talk about the Tigers. And there's a couple questions that we're gonna ask our audience, and we're also gonna ask us. But yeah. Todd, I'm from your neck of the woods. Yes, I grew up in that area of I went to Saint Sebastian's, and I went to Cabrini. So, but in that vicinity right there, that's all CYO stuff, all Catholic stuff. But again, as far as my high school goes, I'm just not a big fan of my high school. It's I had I met some really good friends there, but the whole experience, it's another story for another day. Whatever. We're not here to talk about that. But we are here to talk about one of the questions that Chris, was this you that came up with that question, by the way?
Which one?
The Riley Green one.
Oh, yeah. It just kind of popped into my head earlier today. I don't know if we'll discuss it now, but just the idea, for the Tigers to have success in 2024, a lot of it's going to hinge on injured guys coming back and being healthy and performing. And not everybody's going to be healthy. So I was just in my head, I'm like, okay, well, arguably the two most talented, best players on the team are going to be Tarek Skubal and Riley Green. And so my kind of theoretical question is, if you could only have one healthy for the entire season, which one do you pick? Is it Skubal or is it Green? And I have some thoughts, but I threw it out there to you guys too. And of course, anybody listening who's in the chat, they can chime in there if they think. Obviously, we want both of them, but it's a tough choice.
Yeah, I'm going to type out the question too, as well, so people can, as a point of reference. But Uper, go ahead.
Yeah, it's a great question, and so much of the success of the season is tied into what the results are on the field. I went back and forth a couple times, but in the end, I go Riley Green, and I don't even think it's, once I set it all in my mind, I don't even think it's that close. I think they need that bat in the middle of the order for 160 games would be really amazing. If we see the guy that we saw just before the injury, right, that last month or so, when he was really seemingly getting on base at a 400 clip, had a few line drive home runs. if he's a 25 homer guy and can get on base in the high 300s, like say 380, whatever, that's going to be a day in, day out asset to the lineup that they desperately need. I mean, again, we've talked about it before. They were still a bad offense last year, even with the bit of improvement that they had from some players. So if they're going to go places, that's what they have to have. Plus, with Tarek Skubal, again, dominant 80 innings that he threw it toward the end there, looked great, but he's been so unreliable. And, he's going to be a free agent in a couple of years. So if I was going to pick one who's going to stay healthy and be on the path to stardom, then I'm going to go Riley Green.
I was back and forth about this because I thought about Tarek Skubal in a full season and how that would affect the rotation. But then knowing full well that the Tigers have been able to develop pitching pretty well recently and have seen guys kind of bounce back a little bit, I would have to go with Riley Green because as of the team as it is right now, as of January 4th, they lack offense. They really lack offense right now. The Tigers really do need to go need to sign another bat. They haven't. If they're going to go with Matt Verling at third base to start the year, so be it. But you're not sure what you're getting with Javier Baez. You are getting declining the production. I will say that. Although I did see something on Twitter that I think it was Patrick Kennedy, the writer over at Bless You Boy, saying the Tigers don't have a shortstop. In theory, he's right, but then also Baez, like talking about, he was one of the worst defensive shortstops in all the American League last year by errors.
Defensive?
Yeah.
Oh, well, errors. Okay.
Yeah, fielding percentage, that kind of thing. Yeah. But I know, Chris. We'll get to that in a second. But again, what are your options? There's no free agents on the market. Your minor league system doesn't have any shortstops that can play outside of Kreidler, who, when healthy, might be a fourth bat at best. But honestly, I think Riley Green, you need a fully healthy Riley Green in the outfield. Put him in the corner spot with Parker Meadows in center, and you have a pretty good outfield right there. Because the left field, the Tigers, in terms of left field last year, they weren't getting really a lot of production last year, and they struggled with that. So if they have Green out there, and then you have Canha and Wright, or rotating, you have like a rotating with him and Carpenter, because Carpenter, everybody talks about his defense. I thought Carpenter was fine. He's serviceable in right, or if you had a bat like Jorge Soler, which I'm writing an article about that based off our conversations we had, Uper. So I'm writing an article for Motor City Bengals. Will be coming out tomorrow for that, because I think the Tigers need another right-handed bat.
Mm-hmm.
And there's room for him to play. It's not going to take away from the prospect. So I'll explain all that tomorrow in the article. But defensively, Green, as he is right now, can give you just serviceable, because I do worry about if something that's going to happen to him similar to Brian Buxton, where Buxton right now is what? Essentially, he cannot play the outfield anymore because it's knee on knee, correct? Or something to that effect?
He's a DH for him now, which is wild, because he was one of the best defensive center fielders in baseball. But I don't think he even runs much anymore. It's a shame, but yeah.
I mean, he had the kind of speed where he could hit a routine grounder to short and beat it out, right? I mean, and no one does that.
Well, didn't he do that? Didn't he hit a ground ball to third base, I think, in walk off the Tigers?
Yeah,
as I recall, or maybe it was shortstop. I thought it was third base. It's just a walk off infielder or infield grounder.
Yeah.
Which is not exactly a walk off. It was fastest guy in baseball off, but it's kind of. I looked at it kind of. My initial reaction is Riley Green. And to your point, it's because the Tigers lack offense. One of my resolutions was them to just have an average offense. It's been 7 years since that was the case. That's not too much to ask for, I don't think. But I think in a vacuum, right now, I would just in a vacuum, like I said, I would pick Skubal, because I think he's come closer to his ceiling than Green has. I mean, Green's only played 192 games so far in the big leagues, and he was very good last year. And I think he has a chance to be even better. You know, a 300, maybe get close to 30 home runs one day. He needs to lift the ball a little bit more. But Skubal last year gave us a half a year of legitimate ace, where like a 6-WAR pitcher, Cy Young candidate. Whereas was Green right now, the best we've seen from him is probably more like a 4-WAR player, which is outstanding. That's an all-star. But yeah, so like I said, in a vacuum, I think I'd take Skubal. But given how Green's age, what the Tigers need, I do think that you would prefer to have a healthy year from him, just because, that the bats in the organization aren't quite up there with the arms at this moment. They need more.
Yeah, and that's where, if you look at, for example, Cole Keith potentially winning the job out of spring training at second base, that's totally feasible. But beyond that, there is nothing as far as, like, you look at bats, even from the outfield standpoint, depth wise. Big B is going to be in Toledo. They don't really have a lot of outfielders. I know that, I think it was Evan Woodbury that wrote the article about JD Martinez as an idea. I like that idea too, but he's also kind of limited in he's going to pretty much be your full-time DH essentially. And so that one might take away bats from Kerry Carpenter. Or, it depends. But then, I mean, they brought in Mark Canha for a reason. So I think if they were interested in JD Martinez, I don't think Canha would be here. Personally, I understand where Evan was coming from with it, and it's a great read. But as far as go ahead, Chris.
Well, I just, I mean, I think it's another one of those things where obviously everybody knows the Tigers need more offense, they need more bats, but we've seen, and I think Chris McCoskey talked to us about this. Like, he's AJ Hinch loves versatility. Scott Harris loves versatility. Hinch was kind of handcuffed with Cabrera the last couple of years. I think that he would really like to not have to have a guy who's a DH only. No matter how much they need offense, I think he would prefer somebody who could at least go out there and play the field at an adequate level half the time, 3/4 of the time. So, I mean, it sounds silly. They need offense. Doesn't matter where you get it or how you get it. But just given the two guys that we know are running this organization right now, I don't see it happening. But who knows? They've surprised me before.
Yeah, and the reason why I think Soler would make a good fit is he does play it out. He does play the outfield. He does play right. Mm-hmm. He's not a liability out there. He's serviceable, but his averages, he's hit over 300. As far as Tiger killers go, Soler in his time in Kansas made a humongous dent at Comerica Park. And there was a game, I remember, what was that game? There was a game like he just went like 4 for 5. Like there's some sort of and Bass brings up why I was kind of hesitant about doing an article about him, because reports are they're saying 15, 20 million over multiple years. And I don't think the Tigers are going to do the multiple year thing. They've already proven that. Maybe 2 years tops. But I don't. The thing is, though, is if I look at the market the way it is right now, and we had a question about this from Nick Spillane, one of our regular listeners, we'll get to shortly, about the market has come to a really slow standstill right now. So I think teams are waiting out what's going to happen with guys like along the lines of Jordan Montgomery. And I mean, Harrison Bader selling for 1 year, $10 million today, which was the Mets. And the Mets still haven't. There's still the Japanese pitcher on the market, the lefty. I don't know. I'm trying to blank on his name again.
Imanaga.
Yeah, he's still on the market. The market's kind of coming to a really weird pause, but I think in the next couple of weeks, because as now we know, after the first of the year, teams can come in contact with players again. I think you're going to see some sort of flurry of activity. That being said, teams that need pitching, like Baltimore hasn't done. They signed what? They tried Craig Kimball. Ooh. So it was Baltimore going to do. What is, are the Dodgers done yet? I mean, they've been tied, and it's one of those things. If Soler, like, let's say, for example, the Tigers do sign somebody like Soler or JD Martinez, who doesn't make the team? Who has that done the development for? Well, I mean, Akil Baddoo could be somebody that can start the season in Toledo. Mm-hmm. I mean, in theory, you could see him starting the season, because you look at the outfield situation now. And as far as a guy like Justice Bigbie goes, he's going to have to hit his way on the 40-man roster. So if he hits like crazy in Toledo than maybe Midsummer Call-Up. But who knows? I mean, I just think if they're treating Toledo like they say they're going to treat Toledo, you're going to bet that Toledo's roster is going to be a much better looking roster this year than it was last year.
Well, when you talk about Soler, again, last year, 341 on base, 36 dingers. That plays in most lineups, certainly plays in Detroit's lineup. To me, if they're willing to spend the money and what it takes, well, let's say it's 3 years, $45 million. Okay. I mean, just for fun. Might be more than that. Personally, if that means Badu goes to the minors, that means Carpenter goes to the minors, if that means Meadows goes to the minors, one of those guys, that's okay. I mean, that's just, they have options. They're under team control. I'm not too worried about their development now. They've all been in the system a long time. They want to win games, and they're going to win games with a functional Jorge Soler. If he's playing like last year, then you're going to do with any of those guys we just mentioned. And they will just need to fight their way back or wait for the attrition of injuries and get their next chance. I'm okay with that. I mean, Carpenter, again, love Carpenter. Great story. But again, that last month was nothing special. So, I mean, to count on him as, a big part of a productive lineup, I still think he can do it, but it's no sure thing.
I mean, for me, the main issue with Soler is he had already been signed by now if he were any kind of consistent throughout his career. He had 48 home runs or whatever a couple of years back, maybe more than that. I don't remember. But then he wasn't much of anything the last couple of years. Now, I think there's probably some injuries there, and that's the case with everybody. And yeah, he performed last year like a guy who deserves a multi-year deal at a high dollar value. But I think teams are a little bit wary of that because of the kind of the nothing seasons he's had in between the breakout seasons. So, but yeah, I do think he would be a solid fit for the Tigers. And yeah, I don't think I wouldn't worry about that sending Badu to the minors, honestly. No. But again, yeah, I think it's more about the inconsistency there, and we talked about it. He came up with the Cubs, and when Scott Harris was there, so there may be some familiarity there. It might be interesting to look into that, but I'm not expecting it. I'm trying to think of Juan Soto moved. I'm trying to think of the other big outfielders so far this offseason. Harrison Bader, you just mentioned, right? $10 million for 1 year. Who else has signed or been traded?
As far as it goes, in terms of we're looking at outfielders that are left on the market, Kevin Kiermaier just signed a deal. He's back in Toronto, 1 year, $10.5 million. So that's why that deal makes sense. Then Lee signed that 6-year deal with San Diego. That happened during the break. Jock Peterson's still out there. You have Tiscar Hernandez, who I'm still surprised is out there. And he hasn't been picked up.
The Royals went out and got Renfroe, right?
Yeah, they got Renfroe, right. There's Michael Taylor, but I mean, that's more like a minor league thing. And I do like the idea of Michael Brantley, but 3 years ago, Michael Brantley, not anymore. Brantley is not the same guy he was when, like 2019, when I really liked him. Tyler brings up a good point about what Evan Petzold said about acquiring Bergman since he's a Scott Harris type player. And I think Bergman's agent, is Scott Boras. I think. Yeah. So, but as far as outfield goes, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, that would be more of a 2025 thing. Like you go out there and sign him to a probably 10-year, $350 million contract to get him, which is pricey, but that's probably what he's going to get. I would assume, he's got, he's probably on a Hall of Fame track. Honestly, I haven't looked at his WAR, but I know he had a couple seasons where he was like 7-8 WAR player. Just hard to come by.
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking at in terms of like the rest of the markets goes, Gino Ursil is out there. He's out there as a third baseman. You have somebody maybe suggesting like Justin Turner. You have Emmett. What's an interesting guy who's out there right now is Rosario, who was with who was with the Dodgers. And I only say that because he wasn't terrible. I mean, his numbers on paper, like he slashed 256, 301, 408, but as a guy who, I mean, he's a light hitting guy, but he's a part-time guy. But I like his position versatility, and I don't know. That's somebody that who can play shortstop, and I wouldn't be mad if the Tigers made a play for that too. And the problem is that that's the current free agents right now are really, I think, playing their hand on what kind of value they have. I mean, the reason why Bader got that deal is because Kiermaier got the same deal. That's the market. So we know now that the driving rate right now is 10.5, right around there for that. So I don't know. I think that I still think that if the Tigers want to get creative in fixing the roster, I still think it has to go via trade. I mean, the reason why I would think I suggested Soler is because would it make sense? In some ways, I would have to. I'll explain more in the article, but either way, it's really, really imperative here for the Tigers to, I think, address this. And I think if they are, I think they are, but there's not. It's just, but seeing some of the chatter online that the Tigers haven't done much this offseason is. Am I missing what?
I think that they've been busy buttressing the middle and bottom of the roster, right? They haven't really gone out and gotten the big premium player who's going to put up a 5-WAR season out of nowhere, right? Most likely. They've gotten guys who are going to hopefully keep the floor of the season fairly high with some veteran talent, which is good. I mean, that makes sense. But when we saw in the Athletic, Cody Stavenhagen, right, basically said that they're done. They've had their off season. Boy, that's a little bit disappointing. I will see if that's right, but they didn't really address the top of the roster, the guys who are going to, they're a big impact player. I don't know who that would be. I don't know what's feasible. I don't know what Chris Ilitch wants to spend and where he wants to go with things. But to say they're done right now was a little disappointing. At least to have that intimated anyway.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with Tyler there. He said that he doesn't believe it. I think there's one more move coming. I still feel like there's some kind of trade for a bat in some capacity. I don't know, but each time he's come out, they've talked about, like, he hasn't been shy about, we're not done getting pitching, or we could get the bullpen stronger, and then they go out and do it. And he hasn't said much about bats, so they may very well just be happy and content to hope that the young guys come through healthy and productive. But it just does. It seems like Raj touched on it earlier, that we're still waiting for Montgomery to sign, still waiting for Snell to sign. It still feels like, Cease is possibly getting traded, Bieber's getting traded. Something. It feels like just kind of waiting for some dominoes to fall before the Tigers might be able to make. And again, I don't think it's going to be a blockbuster move that affects the top of the lineup or the top of the the team, as it were. But I do think that there's something else to be done there for the offense. But maybe not. Maybe it's Matt Vierling season at third base.
Yeah. And there is, again, I know that people are going to suggest that Matt Manning's of the world and tradable and everything, but there might not be a market for him. But then again, I sincerely doubt that, because there's some teams with lack of pitching right now. I mean, Dodgers have been also traced to, am I drawing a blank on his name?
Okay.
Yeah, they've been traced to him too, trying to build some sort of quote unquote super team, trying to just sign everybody. They're doing what the Yankees used to do in the offseason. So it's nothing should be appealing or surprising anybody. But there's the market. There has to, I think there's, it's just going to be everybody's got, like, right now, everybody's got their poker hand right now, and they're not giving away what they want to give away. Maybe that's what it is. It's just it's a stalemate. But teams are going to start the next couple of weeks, because we're only 6 weeks away from spring training.
Well, yeah, I mentioned it after the Juan Soto trade, when they traded, the Padres traded Grisham away too. They still don't have an outfield. they can, and the outfielders are getting signed. I mean, maybe that's a landing spot for Soler, but I don't think they want to spend much money. So I keep saying, like, that seems like a spot for Badu or Carpenter if you want to go that route. Like, I feel like there's something that they could do there, but again, you kind of have to wait for things to shake out.
Yeah, that trade, by the way, and then they signed him to an extension too, which is, I mean, apparently Atlanta's just
what,
giving away
Chris
money.
Sale?
Yeah, they signed him to a 2-year
No.
extension.
Oh, yeah, I didn't see that, but well, when healthy, Chris Sale is still a pretty decent pitcher. He still gets strikeouts. He doesn't walk many guys. He's given up some home runs, hard contact lately, but it's mostly been weird, freaky injuries with him in the last couple of years.
So, Chris, for instance, if I told you they were going to get 150 solid innings from Casey Mize and another 60 innings from Job at some point, would that have changed your answer to Riley Green over Skubal?
Well, yeah, but I don't expect 150 innings from Casey Mize.
No, I don't either. I just say,
I was actually kind of one of my resolutions that I was putting out in my head was some more innings from the starting pitching this year, which is kind of a tall ask because almost all these guys are coming back from injury in some capacity. Flaherty hasn't been healthy for a long time. He threw like 145 innings last year. Skubal only threw 80 innings last year. Reese Olson threw like 145 last year between AAA and Detroit. So and Maeda was coming back. I don't know. He threw 75, 80 innings, something like that. Like theoretically, all four of those guys could give you 150 plus if they stay healthy. But that's just in a real world, that's not going to happen. And then you still need to find like 250 innings from Manning, Gibson, Long, Montero, Madden, any of these guys, Job, Mize. So I think they have the bodies to do it. It's just like with the injury track records, all these guys, you can't expect a ton of health, unfortunately.
Yeah, there's just that's where we talk about a position of strength with depth, but yeah, I'm not going to pencil in Casey Mize throwing 100 innings. I've learned that I look at something like along the lines of, like, for example, Mark Fidrich. After his rookie season, when he got injured, he was never the same guy, and he never pitched full-time baseball after 77. After that, he was pretty much toast. And I'm not saying Casey Mize is that at all. I'm not going to go that route. But I mean, with advancements in technology and all that stuff. But the point is, there's nothing, you can never pencil that in as a guarantee. And so I don't blame the Tigers if they were looking for another pitcher. If they were, by the way, somebody mentioned Donnie Sands, by the way, era is over. He got released by the team. Tyler mentions the Tigers and Padres would make a good trade partner. I think the Tigers and Baltimore, Reds. I mean, the Reds also. You mentioned the Reds. They went out and signed Frankie Montas to the Red. I mean, again, if I'm going to give a team like an off-season award, it would be the Cincinnati Reds. They've done a really good job of supplementing their young talent with some really good depth. And for an owner who's been castrated or just been ostracized for his cheap-like behavior to a certain extent, at least he's going out there and spending, and knowing he's recognizing that the NL Central is kind of a wide open. I mean, if you really think about it, Milwaukee is not spending. St. Louis is, I guess, doing. I mean, who knows what St. Louis is doing?
Very mysterious.
Yeah, even Pittsburgh has done some things. I mean, but that's what Pittsburgh does. And then the Cubs, who were supposed to be this big, the Cubs haven't done jack shit. They haven't done jack shit. You're the biggest market in that division, and you haven't done anything. So, and if the Reds are done, then hey, they did more than they've done more than the Cleveland Guardians and Twins and the Brewers, and I'm trying to think of the other team that comes to mind, the NL Central. Why am I drawing a blank? Or the Miami Marlins combined. I'll just put the Marlins on there. Combined. They haven't. They're just saying. There's just, to me, and even like it's bizarre to me. The Cubs are just looking there, going, No, we're good. No, we're good. What? I mean, the White Sox have done more than you have, but as Stan sent me a text of the White Sox combined WAR players. I think it was combined -1 of the players they acquired.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Oh man,
I did hear the Cubs. The Cubs still might bring back Bellinger, right? That would be a relatively significant move by them.
And theoretically, Stroman. I think Stroman's still out there. Yeah, the Cubs have a pretty darn good farm system. They may be trying to go the Tigers route, I guess. Given counting on Pete Crow Armstrong and maybe
Ben Brown,
James Triantos to come up or whatever. Yeah, the pitcher Ben Brown was really good in the minors last year. At least looked good. But I expect they'll eventually grab some players. Yeah, like you said, there's spring training is getting close, but there's still plenty of time to sign guys.
there is plenty of time. There's plenty of time, and I think there's time to make resolutions. So let's talk about resolutions here. So I have from last year. I have my own resolutions, my 2023 goals and resolutions. So I'm gonna name mine real quick, but they're somewhat baseball related. So my target weight was 230 pounds. Didn't happen. Life happens, but I put that on there. I put that as accountability. Complete my daily task list. So every day I would stay organized and do that. It sounds like a stupid thing, but I did that every day. There is literally about 4 or 5 of these notebooks full of notes and stuff.
Wow.
So I think it makes better for a better podcast too. Goal 1,000 subscribers for each channel. We did that last year. Thanks to you. Thanks to our listeners. We had, let's see. Yep, we hit a download goal that I put on here. We hit that last month, or we hit that. Practice Spanish, so I'm speaking it more fluently every day. Didn't do that, so that was the goal. And then in terms of like web page views for Tiger Mining Report, hit that goal. So yeah, and then the workout goal. I was able to work out almost half the year. Like I had a 35% increase in workouts from the year before.
Nice.
So what I want the Tigers resolution to be, my Tigers resolution is fix runners in scoring position. Virgil said that really, really well. But if I'm going to go with another one, the one I was going to go with is simply this. Beat teams that are playoff bound. Beat the AL East teams. They struggled against teams like that last year mightily. And they did what they were supposed to do against teams that were inferior. But my goal, the Tigers' resolution this year should be when they play against teams like Tampa or anybody in the West, that they're able to hang a little better. Because it's just against the AL East, it got brutal. So that's my resolution. Uper, what's your or Chris?
Oh, yeah, go Yup. No, go ahead, Yup, because I don't really have anything.
No.
Oh. Well, on my personal side, it's for umpiring. I am hopeful to umpire more this year for a bunch of reasons. My vacations worked out, and I had a little ankle injury for a while last summer. I didn't get to umpire near as much, so I'm hoping to nearly double what I did. I only did about something like 66 games last year between travel ball and high school. I'd like to get back over 100. That's kind of where I've always been, sometimes up to 125. And if possible, I'd like to do more high school and less travel ball, just because travel ball parents and coaches are jerks. So, and high school is much easier in that respect. Although if I'm going to get up to 120 games, I'm going to have to work some travel ball. There's just no way around that because you can work 5 in a day. So, but for the Tigers, to me, in last season, I said it many times, it was about finding out if Torkelson is a ball player, finding out if Green is a ball player. And I think we got some good signs on both of those last year. For me, the players I'm going to be watching very closely is, assuming he's there, Colt Keith, and the return of Casey Mize, which is why I brought that up. I really still think that star pitcher is in there somewhere. And I just wonder if getting the UCL redone is going to be the ticket. Because again, that last year in college, the year before, he was shut down with a forearm. You always knew that was lurking. And I just wondered what that meant for him as he was trying to battle through it for all these years since then. Now he's fixed, hopefully, depending if the back is good and everything. But watching Mize, for me, that's going to be my resolution, to never miss a start and then hope for the best for him. And then I'd like to see Kreidler healthy. I'm a Kreidler guy. Saw him a lot in person. I think he can play, but, he's just been hurt. And then finally is, for me, I'm going to try to resist watching Vic Reyes highlights every day out of South Korea. I'm just going to try to cut the cord with Vic, let it go. It's time for us to say goodbye. He's over in Korea. Hopefully he comes back, but I'm probably not going to watch too much of that.
That's funny.
There you go.
Yeah, I mean, so I don't usually make New Year's resolutions in any capacity. I don't. I guess the one thing I want to continue to do, I got a son here who's about to turn 10, and I just want to spend as much time as possible with him. I figure I got about 2 years left before he wants nothing to do with me. And so I'm going to try to enjoy this time with him. That's basically the only thing in my personal life. For the Tigers, I kind of already touched on. That's why I said I didn't have anything. I mentioned it'd be nice to have a league average offense. I actually wrote it down. They finished with a team WRC plus at 89 last year. From 2010 to 2016, the worst they had was 102. Then that was 2010. Since then, it's been 83, 77, 92, 93, 80, 89 over the last 6-7 years. So just something close to average. 2017 was 98. That's not great, but I would prefer that to what we've been seeing. And the other one I mentioned was just trying to get some more starting pitching, more innings out of your starters. Last year, that was 786.2 innings, which was 24th in the big leagues. Now, they had a pretty good bullpen, right? So it's not a huge problem there, but it's tough to rely on that. The average in the big leagues was 840 innings. So if they can get to 840, that would be nice. Seattle, Houston, and Philly were all at about 900, which is kind of wild. So, yeah, just want to see that. And then, I don't have, I wouldn't call this a resolution so much, but one of the things I'm looking forward to in 2024 is the rollout of bat speed data at Baseball Savant and StatCast. They've been dropping little crumbs. Mike Petriello and Tom Tango. Tom Tango had a couple articles about, he had Luis Arias and Ronald Acuna Jr. How Luis Arias's top 10% in bat speed coincides with Ronald Acuna Jr.'s bottom 10%, and how it's just going to be a whole new batch of data that's really interesting. But the one thing that I'm most curious to see is Javi Baez. I want to see. I think his bat is slower than it used to be. I go back and watch highlights from him from 2018, 2019, and I see this kind of just explosive, violent swing. And we see some of the violent swings still, but he didn't hit fastballs last year, and I think the bat is actually slower. And I'd be curious to see if that's quantified at all, or if it's just in my head. So that's something I'm looking forward to being able to check out here at some point in 2024.
I like that. I like that a lot. The Baez, because you're right. You can slow it down or anything, and we may not know, but he has definitely got the big hole in the swing, and to see that kind of data out there. Somebody mentioned the play-by-play, Jason Benintendi doing the games. That's something I'm looking forward to. Absolutely. Also, Colt Keith. And because it was something that I'm looking forward to, contributions from the minor league system on a regular basis. Something that becomes normal versus just we're all shocked. With the production of Kerry Carpenter and those things, that is becoming, we're not so shocked. So like next year, for example, we'll talk about Colt Keith's great rookie year where he might have won Rookie of the Year. I don't know. But to have that expectation already in place, or that Montero came up in a clutch situation and was good down the stretch, taking place of an injured pitcher, or wherever the case is. Starter Gibson Long becomes more of a thing. That's what I'm looking forward to, because we saw some of that. We saw glimpses of that last year. And I don't normally, when it comes to like foreshadowing or reading people, it's hard to read people from like a distance. If you're in person, it's a completely different element. But being in the dugout last year, but seeing his behavior this year in the offseason, I think AJ Hinch really is really comfortable with his, like, he's content, and he really likes to hear it. And I'm not saying it just for lip service purposes, but I mean, stuff I can't say on here, obviously, but just as when he jokes around with us and everything, he was a lot more laxed last year than he was the year before. And so I think that is reflected based off some of the guys he's also brought in the coaching wise too. You'll see Joey Cora here as well. There's a bunch of assists. There's a couple of assistants, new staff. We were foreshadowing this for a little while. The Tigers hired another pitching coach, Dylan Axelrod, who was with the Angels because apparently
for Detroit.
Yeah. And Troy, I mean, you could thank former Tiger pitcher Troy Percival for that. But I mean, allegedly, I mean, Troy Percival came in and was like, "Hey, I don't like iPads. I don't like all this metric crap." And the Angels were like, "Oh, sure, okay, cool." And
it's wild that they listened to him. You know, the two guys that got fired, Axelrod ended up here in Detroit. The other guy ended up with the Rays. So, yeah, that's a tough break. You know, I wanted to. I'm glad you brought up Colt Keith, because I actually did a little bit of research before today, trying to get back into that. You know, when we had more structure, when we had you know, during the season, you know, we have our segments and stuff, and so I like do a little research. And one of the things we talked about a bunch is Colt Keith tends to start slow at a new level, which is not uncommon for any player. But I went back and looked. So I went and back to 2021 when he just first started in Low A Lakeland. His first 14 games, he hit 191 with no homers, 7 walks, and 16 strikeouts. And then over his next 33 games, he hit 404 with a home run, just one. Still, he wasn't in for a ton of power there, but 26 walks and 23 strikeouts. So they bumped him up to High A West Michigan for 18 games, where he hit 162 with 1 home run, 8 walks, and 27 strikeouts. So he struggled a little bit when he moved up. That's natural. When he went back to West Michigan to start 2022, he was pretty good right away. He hit 290 with 6 home runs over the first 2 months. And then he started June, the first 6 games of June, he was hitting 381 with 3 homers in 6 games before he got hurt. So he just started to take off, it seems. And we saw it again last year, a couple times. In 2023, his first 9-10 games there in Erie, he was just batting like 225, only 1 home run, 4 walks, 8 strikeouts. I remember he self-diagnosed that he was too crouched over, I think, or too hunched, or too upright. I don't remember which one it was. But the first month overall, hit 286, which was great, right? 3 home runs, 8 walks, 22 strikeouts in 20 games. From then on, he hit 346 with 10 homers, 17 walks, and 41 strikeouts over the next 40 games. So they bumped him up to Toledo. And, you know, he had a big splash there in beginning in Toledo, home run in his first game, maybe his first at bat, I think it was. And then hit that 470-foot home run a couple days later. But, you know, first 23 games, he's hitting 267 with 3 homers, 12 walks, 23 strikeouts. It's solid, but not particularly special. But then over the final 44 games, 297 with 10 homers, 23 walks, and 35 strikeouts. So, you know, those are all kind of arbitrary, but it's a pattern, right? He comes up, he struggles a little bit because it's a higher level, and he's always been young for the level. And then he makes adjustments and he improves. And that's one of the things we like the most about him, right? Is he's always shown that ability to make those adjustments. He finds his footing. And obviously, you know, the next jump is the biggest one. So I would just, you know, caution people to give him a month.
So
or 6
is he
weeks
on the
to find
opening
his
day
footing.
roster and they go for the rookie of the year in the draft pick? Or
I think he is. I think he's absolutely on the opening day roster. That was one of the 2 questions we couldn't ask Ryan Garco, was who's going to make the roster and who's injured, which is totally fine. But just given the moves that we've seen them make over the offseason, they're holding the spot open for Colt Keith. I don't, unless he absolutely falls on his face in spring training, I think he's coming out of spring training as their second baseman.
Yeah, I second that.
But again, I'm just, you know, fans should give him a month to 6 weeks to find his footing, and he may be solid for a while. He may struggle, but he's eventually going to figure it out because he's that good of a hitter.
Jake Rogers is up for the All-Star position or All-Star spot like that. What would be Bass wants to know what would be considered a good first year for Colt Keith? You know what? Anything over 275 and 20 home runs.
Oh, that would be great.
Oh my God.
I mean, think back to, yeah, I mean, I think 250 with 20 home runs would be on the upper end of what you could expect from a rookie. If he goes and does that and he's playing adequate defense at second base, that's like a 2-3 win season from a rookie, which would be pretty solid for. I don't know. I mean, like, we love the bat. We love the selectiveness, the power, the hitting ability. So just a matter of how quickly he makes those adjustments.
Look, I mean, I know there's some wow, geez, and all that, but again, out of all the, if Keith, for his age, what he's done in the Tiger system, he's done more. He's done it. He did more than Riley Green did. I mean, and if you're talking like power and average, and less strikeouts, he had a 6-for-6 game last year, folks. Something that has never been done in MLB, where he hit 2 home runs and hit for the cycle. It's just one of those things where I know it sounds like we're pumping him up. He might start off the gate struggling, but there's so many times where when we talk to him and how much he prepares and makes the adjustments, I don't know why I've been so confident about Colt Keith when normally I'm always skeptical. For people who, the chance of him being overhyped, Bass, I don't think so. I mean, if he was being overhyped, he'd be talked about right now, but he hasn't been among league circles or anything like that. The Tigers know what they have with them, but they're probably cautiously optimistic. And Detroit Degenerate, he'll be better than Steven Moya. I mean, Steven Moya, like, couldn't even in the minors, I mean, he hit home runs, but he never hit for average. He hit like 35 or 30 home runs, but would hit 246. But I think Keith, my expectations are my realistic expectations. If he goes out there and hits 260 with 20 home runs, then I'd be happy with that. Or he just goes out there and gives the Tigers a solid second base, and he's definitely untradeable, no doubt. Colt Keith, there's go ahead, Chris.
Well, just to throw this out there, I was just looking. So, you can look at the projection systems right now. Steamer has Colt Keith hitting 261 with 10 home runs in 82 games, I think, 84 games, 260 with 10 home runs. Steamer can be a little bit optimistic, but Zips has Keith hitting 251 with 19 homers over a full season of at bats, and that's those are both, I think, realistic. They're probably. You don't want to just automatically assume a guy's going to come up and hit big league pitching, because we've seen it before where it just doesn't work. But I think those are realistic expectations: 250 to 260 with 15 to 20 home runs.
Yeah, 16 to 20 dingers, league average on base. I'd love to see that. If he was just even league average or slightly above on base percentage, which means that patience has come to the major leagues with him, and just play a competitive second base. A second base to the point where you can stick him there and you're fine.
Yeah, I'd be happy with that. There's just, again, the expert.
So we don't think we're going to play the service time game. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, that's what I think. Because who else? I mean,
okay,
gonna have Andy Abaez there as a backup just in case.
You could play Andy Ibanez for 10 games. I mean, you could do that and bring him up and gain that extra year. I know everybody hates it, but business-wise, it makes sense.
I think that there's, I think that the benefit of the potential draft pick for bringing him up. I mean, you have to kind of thread the needle there. He has to be really good and win an award. Yeah. But I think they believe in him to the point where that's possible. And even still, you bring a guy up. Few players stay healthy for the full season, right? There's a chance he gets injured. There's a chance. there's a chance that he doesn't perform and you send him down to Toledo for a couple weeks and you get that extra year organically, as it were. So I just wouldn't worry about it. Like, if you believe in them, and I think they do, then you bring them north. Remember Jim Leland used to say, just give me the best players. That's how you end up with Zamaya and Verlander, and later on it's Porcello and Ryan Perry on the opening day roster.
3 out of
They
4
were
is
the
not
best
bad.
options. Yeah, so I think he's going to be one of their best hitting options. He's absolutely one of their 9 best hitters right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah.
I mean, it's to me, it's not even for all the offense they need to get. Yeah, if it's 250 and 19 home runs, I'll take that because it's anything better than the alternative right now, what they have. But I think I'm trying to keep my expectations realistic as possible. There will be struggles, but I just want this is not the situation, like, no offense to the great Mike Gerber or something along those lines. This is a guy who can hit and has hit at every level he's been at. This is not just a guy that they're just calling, like, he's forced the issue. He has forced the issue. And to me, that's just, for how long we've been doing this, I've never seen a guy hit that, like, just mash the ball, just smoke the ball. Dawal Lugo was a bum. I'm sorry. He was a
Who's
bum
saying
when they
Dawal
got him.
Lugo?
Yeah, somebody said remember him. Remember,
I mean,
his
Dawal
family did that.
Lugo was typified the Alavila player acquisition strategy, seemingly, which was find guys who can put the bat on the ball, even when they do so to their own detriment, and that's what Dawal Lugo did. I don't think he probably had a strikeout rate under 20%, but probably walked 3-4% and wouldn't hit the ball hard. And there was a great article in Baseball Prospectus the other day about Corey Seager and how he was the best player in baseball at swinging at pitches he should have. And that's kind of the key. It's everybody loves walks, but you have to swing at those pitches that you can drive. That's a huge thing. And Tigers had a ton of guys who just swung at everything. It didn't matter. So you didn't have to throw them anything you could drive. So Colt Keith is one of those players. He makes pretty damn good swing decisions. Like the one issue I saw with him in Toledo when he first got there and he was struggling a little bit was he was chasing, not chasing, but he was putting the bat on pitches on the edge that maybe he can't drive as well. And he eventually got away from that and waited. Remember the game we saw, the Gibson Long game, he would just wait out. He waited. I think they threw him like 2 consecutive sliders down and in, didn't swing. They threw him a fastball and hit a home run. That was just the maturation process there. So, yeah, I know somebody, who was it? So somebody asked about a comp for Justin Henry Malloy. I don't know if you guys have anything off the top of your head.
I'm drawn. Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm kind of Michael Dyer, Detroit degenerate, could play the outfield. Malloy can't. I'm sorry. I mean, Malloy's serviceable at left field, but he doesn't really have an arm.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a chance that he can survive in the outfield. The main issue I think where we've got with Malloy is that the power is above average, but it's not like game-changing power because he's got like a Max Muncy level, batting profile. He's probably going to walk 15+% of the time and strike out 25 to 30%.
Is he dumb and young with walks?
That's, I mean, but part of what Damon made dumb and young was that swinging at everything. That's what made him so frustrating, and then also like the most dangerous postseason hitter of all time. Yeah, no, I there isn't a great 1-to-1 comp there. Like he kind of reminds me a little bit of like a right-handed Lamont Wade, who was kind of a platoon player for, I think he started with the Twins and then made it over to the Giants. A guy who walks a lot, but really, not a great defender. Doesn't have a ton of power. There's enough pop there. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what happens with Malloy because it does kind of feel like he's a man without a place right now. But he had an awesome year. There's no debating that. He hit 280 with tons of walks and 22, 23 home runs.
You got to find something to do with that guy. I mean, that's an asset. I mean, it's so funny. It's such a quandary, and no one can figure it out.
Yeah, it's not like I don't want to see people think we're writing him off or anything that he won't be effective on this roster. It's just a question of where they put him in the roster, and it's Michael Kevin Youkilis with worst D. That's actually not bad. It's actually not bad at all.
Yeah, Euclid makes sense. It makes sense. It's kind of a right-handed hitter, tons of walks.
Cue-stick swing.
Yeah, kind of above average power numbers, but not really plus power. I don't think Euclid ever hit 30 bombs, did he?
Maybe once.
Maybe yeah, that's not a bad call. But it's a fairly uncommon profile. And yeah, Euclid was more of, I don't know, like maybe I'd feel better if Malloy was just a first baseman. Like, all right, just go to first base, and Torque didn't exist, and you'd be like, okay, that's the guy. He's going to get on base. He's going to hit you 20 home runs. It's a perfectly acceptable first baseman, but that's just not the situation they're in right now.
Yeah,
Euclid hit 29 one year.
Oh, so he hit more than 25 then. Okay.
He hit 29 one year, 27 the next. Career 280 hitter with a 12% walk rate, 18%.
And Rick Porcello kicked his ass on the mound, and he was never the same.
Yeah, unless you're Dan Shaughnessy or whatever, and who was the Boston Globe columnist that said he hogtied Porcello? It's like, what? But anyway.
At any rate, yes. So as far as that goes, I mean, as we end the podcast, one of the things that I do want to put out there that we are going to be starting here in the next couple of days, if not tomorrow, is we're going to be releasing a GoFundMe for all the stuff for this year. I don't like doing it. I was, or rather, last year, Mark Gurash, friend of the show, also co-host of the Days of War podcast. We're going to be on the Days of War podcast. Chris and I are going to be talking minor league baseball here the next couple of weeks over there. So look out for that. We also have a big guest on the minor league side on Sunday. We're recording, but I'm not telling you who, because we're not doing that. I'm not going to tease it.
I did before we go. I did. You've had a couple things that he brought up.
Yes, and there's a couple. We did get a couple questions too, I believe.
Yeah, I do. I don't know if you want to talk about the Tom Gage book first, or I liked your prospect question. I don't know which one you want to tackle first.
Well, let's just talk about Tom Gage's book real quick. It came out today. He put it on Facebook. I happened to see it. I'm not bragging. I'm friends with Tom Gage on Facebook, but I guess I am. Because I've known Tom for several years. Back when I was just a little micro blogger on the Detroit News Tiger Talk forum, Tom used to follow along on that pretty well, and so did Lynn Henning. And Tom would meet with me when I'd see games in Kansas City or in Minneapolis when he was a beat writer. Always so generous with his time and talking about his photography skills on the road that he killed time with, but also talking about the Tigers and the inner workings. Just a wonderful guy. With the 40th anniversary of the 1984 championship coming up, he has written a book with Lance Parrish called The Enchanted Season, and it's available now on Amazon and other places. I'm really looking forward to reading it. It's going to be a lot of Lance Parrish's stories. Tom's writing skills are, Hall of Fame level. So I'm really looking forward to that one coming out.
Tom Gage, by the way, is the big reason why I got into the Baseball Writers Association, because he is still the chapter president. Mm-hmm. And it's funny because it's like, I think he wants to retire from doing it, but can't, because a lot of people in the group are like, I don't want to do that. But be, the president or what have you, but he accepted he was the one that had the final stamp and set my approval in. So I owe Tom, and growing up reading Tom Gage and him and his takes, because he was always very partial. He was fair. He wasn't, his writing was always down. His writing style is something that I wanted to aim for myself as a writer, because he just called it the way you see it. He had his own facts, but the fact that I never thought in a million years I'd meet the guy, and he was the one that was rubber stamped me to get into the Baseball Writers Association. So
Prince of a guy.
Yeah, he's a really nice guy, and
Yeah.
I've seen him in a booth a couple times this year. And yeah, him and his wife are really fantastic people. So
Basically, with him, it's show me a guy who says Tom Gage isn't a good dude, and I'll show you a liar. Because Tom Gage is a prince of a guy. I'll tell you, and as a Tiger fan, boy, if you got to hang out with him at a coffee shop or on a subway on the road, it was hilarious. I met Tug Fister because of that. The day after he struck out 9 Royals, they were in Minnesota. Met Quentin Berry. I met Rick Porcello, Don Kelly, a bunch of guys. So they're all stopping by to see Tom. So as a fan, that was just outrageously fun. So I really hope this book does well. And with the 40th anniversary of the last championship, that should help it quite a bit, I would imagine.
Yeah, that'd be fun to read. My mom got me for Christmas. I just went over to my parents' house for Christmas finally because they both had COVID. My mom got me the 1988 Tigers yearbook, assigned to somebody named Andy. And in it, there's the 1988 team photo, and it's kind of funny seeing all those dudes in there. But the other funny story was, Raj, I was, trying to get in the BBWAA too, was just because, that way, basically, I write about baseball, and that way I don't have to worry with credentials every time, and putting in the requests. And I sent Tom a text, but I forgot to tell him write my name. So he wrote back like 3 days later. He's like, "Who are you?" I'm like, "Oh, that's not a great introduction." So that was funny. But yeah, maybe next year. I missed the deadline to apply this year by a couple weeks. But yeah, so that 40 years, hard to believe it's been that long. But yeah, it'd be nice to start getting back in that championship level.
Now you guys have met Lance Parrish, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. We had one of our better. We talked to him back in 2019 when he was the manager of West Michigan. We had one of the most fascinating conversations with him. He was the one that told us the story how Tigers trying to make him a switch hitter, and
it's been a half year teaching him how to switch hit, and just as he got it, they're like, never mind.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I mean, do you think that him telling stories through Tom will be probably pretty good?
Oh yeah, no doubt. And what was nice about Parrish, I think from our experience, we didn't ask him one single question about the 84 World Series. We didn't. I mean, not that we didn't care or anything. I was more interested in hearing about him really. I mean, he was a big wheel, and a lot of times, I mean, early on, I remember Sparky gotten mad at those guys because they were weightlifting, and Sparky never really was a big fan of that. When I've been reading a lot about how Sparky liked certain things, and a guy like, for example, Tiger favorite Jason Thompson. I mean, he was traded, and Tiger fans were upset about it, but he didn't like the fact that Jason Thompson was a muscle building. But if it wasn't for Darrell Evans getting into that weight regimen in 87, prior to the 87, Tigers would have been screwed because, I mean, as you recall, Evans had to play third base for the first time since his San Francisco days. I mean, crap, even probably since his days in Atlanta. Talking, and he played, he had to play multiple positions at the age of 40. I mean, that's something about that 87 season that gets lost on. And it is weird, by the way, Chris, when I saw your 88 picture, it was Ray Knight. That was one of his last stops. Is the 86 Mets World Hero. There he is in the 88 Tigers team as a gasp for the Tigers problem that is now apparent today. What does the 88 Tigers have in common with the Tigers now? Think about it for a second.
Offense?
Well, lack of a third baseman.
Oh, there you go.
Huh?
Well,
yeah.
I mean, funny thing in that picture is that there's like just the old guy row. You get Fred Lynn next to Frank Tanana, next to like Doyle Alexander. You're like, oh man,
that's brutal.
But yeah, some people are still chatting about Malloy in there. One of the other things, Zips does give you player comps for players, and their 3 for Malloy are Nolan Jones, who actually just had a really good year for the Rockies, Logan Forsythe, who had 1 good year for the Rays, 2 good years, and then Tom Evans, who I'd never heard of before, and I looked him up, and he actually played 42 games in the big leagues from 97 to 2000. So yeah, those are the most similar players according to Zips. Forsythe had two good seasons. But
Yeah.
but the other thing that you brought up that I thought was fun was, and I don't remember the exact parameters, but it was who are the top. Is it heading into next year?
After 24, who will be the Tigers' top 3 prospects in your mind?
Okay.
Now,
Yeah.
the one thing with that would be is, has Jackson Jobe lost his rookie status, right? His prospect status, I should say. So, but otherwise,
Yeah, that's the thing for me. I had 4 names pretty quickly pop up in my head, and 2 of them I'm positive will still be in the minors, and the other 2 I'm not. So that's the tough one. And then of course we don't know who they're going to take in the draft. What do they have, the 11th pick? Unlikely. The farm system is strong enough now. There's a chance that 2 of my 4 do get promoted to the big leagues, and the other third guy is whoever they take in the draft. But I don't know if Raj had thoughts on that, or I can just give my list. I don't know.
Yeah, go ahead with your list first.
Yeah. So my list is pretty simple. It's Jackson Jobe, Max Clark, and Kevin McGonigal. I think it came down for me. It came down to Jobe and Jace Young. Are both of those guys going to still be prospects at the end of the season, to the beginning of next year? And to me, it seems more likely that Jobe still is. I know that, he's got the highest upside, and he could probably pitch in the big leagues coming out of spring training, just given his pure stuff. But there are more people in the way, if that makes any sense. Like, I don't think they necessarily are itching to get him on the 40-man roster when you have 4 or 5 other guys who are frankly more ready, have more innings at the higher levels. There's going to be growing pains with Jackson Jobe, and we've seen guys dominate all the way through Double-A, only to kind of fall apart in Triple-A and the majors. That's Matt Manning's story, right? Like, he was Eastern League Pitcher of the Year, awesome in Double-A. So I'm not quite ready to anoint Jackson Jobe, and I don't think he'll get enough innings in the big leagues to exhaust his rookie status. And whereas I think that Jace Young, he's going to start the year in Toledo, I believe, and by the middle of the year he could be up in Detroit.
So talking 3 prospects beyond 2024, right?
Yep.
Yeah, to begin the 2024 season, who are their top 3 prospects?
Okay.
No, 2025. Well, after the 2020.
I'm sorry. Yes. Well, it just turned 2024. I'm still in 2023 in my head.
I'm with you.
So after this year, after the season, right?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. I'm gonna go with Jace Young because I think he's gonna need time at third base, and I think he either is on the cusp of being on the major league team next year, or he has a job in spring training, heading into spring training. Kevin McGonigal. I mean, he jumped in Lakeland and looked. He really, really. I thought he soared really well. I thought he did a pretty good job. And I mean, see, the thing is, it's easy to put Jackson Jobe at number 3, but I'm going to give you guys a wild card. And I'm going to put Jobe, and then right next to that is a top prospect, Jaden Ham.
Oh, wow.
I know that sounds a little bold.
That's a hand
Rod
slam.
comes off the top rope.
Yeah.
I know it sounds a little bold, but I've been bold before.
Yeah.
I was in the Andre Lipsius train before everybody else was. Well, I was the one that suggested Cole Keefe at number 1 way before all this stuff was.
Yes.
But I just see something in Jaden Ham when he went out there in Lakeland last year, in a short period of time, outside of Troy Melton, he looked really good. I mean, again, this is the end of the season against September, so I have to take that got to take that out of my mind. But as far as a top prospect goes, because if we're talking, the reason why like guys like perhaps like Madden or Flores, I mean, may have graduated at some point. So I know that it sounds like I'm being extreme here, but if Jaden Ham gets off to a good start and he starts dealing in West Michigan, I think he might start the season in West Michigan. If not, and if he makes his way to Double-A, there's something about Jaden Ham that stood out to me. And so, but with the caveat being that Madden and Flores and Montero are either at graduating or about to graduate, which leaves Jaden Ham's not going to be in the Middle League club this year, obviously. But he might make a strong case and knock next year. Again, based on a small sample size. I just wanted to be a little different because I watched a lot of games last year, and when I was watching Lakeland pitching, a lot of it was just like, it was tough sledding. It was really tough sledding. The offense was what kept that 20-1 record, whatever they had in July, some insane amount, was because of their offense. It had nothing to do with their pitching. But when I saw Jaden Ham pitch, I was like, wow, I mean, he looked really good in a short period of time. So,
wow, okay. Well, for me, basically, I am going with the assumption or the hope, if nothing else, that they are going to be a contending team at the big league level this year for the Central Division. Okay, not maybe for a World Series, but with the division where it's at, I'm hopeful that it's going to be all hands on deck to make a push. And that gets Job and probably Young to the big leagues. Now, will that be enough to exhaust their prospect status? Who knows? That's a guess. But if that does happen, then for me it was Clark, McGonigal, and hoping for a big step forward from Ty Madden.
Nice. That makes sense.
all right.
Yeah,
Dingler. Let's go ahead.
I would say that was a fun question, but I appreciated that. Yeah, we'll see Dingler. I think.
Max Anderson's a good one too. That's certainly a dude who could hit.
Every year there are players who come from not necessarily out of nowhere, but guys who rise way up in the rankings, and last year's draft picks are great choices for that, right? Anderson and Ham are both really fun picks. Yeah, there are some names in there. I think Raj mentioned Troy Melton. I could see him continuing to climb the ladder and climb the rankings. Yeah, it's a fun thing to think about. And
what round was Ham picked in again?
I think he was the 5th rounder this year.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. They went.
That sounds right.
Clark, McGonigal, Anderson, Wilson, Rucker, and then Ham. I think. Sound right?
Yeah, that sounds right. And look, Max Anderson, I think, can do very well this year too. He's going to advance pretty well, and then you're going to be really. I won't say anything until it gets to AA, because then that's when AA is where you make or break a prospect as far as either pitching or hit. Justice Bigby could be as far as Bigby's almost at that graduating prospect status too. So it's like, again, I know that's kind of granular and being anal or just kind of being particular about it, but I look at some of those players in the system right now that I'm getting excited for this year to see. Gene Ham's one of them. The Kevin McGonigal is one of them. Max Clark. I'm looking forward to seeing him play. I mean, we've seen his swing. By the way, speaking of, someone didn't bring up real quick, and I forgot to bring this up. And I know we're going on almost hour 30 here, but something that was in Baseball America that came up, which gives the data that Jeff Pontus did a really good article on, and where the Tigers are as far as they have advanced themselves in a lot of categories in terms of data that stands out. So for any metric people out there who are like, oh, I don't like metrics and whatever, this is kind of those metrics where it favors the Tigers, but and it has real tangible data to it. Data that's relevant in the sense that you're looking at a team here that you're looking at some of what the development staff has done. And as a result, and now I'm trying to find the article, which is driving me nuts. All right, I found it. Okay, so one of the Tigers were among the top 10 in a lot of different categories, and it comes to hitting. So I'm pulling this up right now on Discord because that's where I remember putting some of this information on, and it's just easier for me to search it that way versus trying to dive into minor league stuff. But here we go. So the Tigers and the Phillies are only organizations that are highly ranked in both contact and 90th percentile in exit velocity. The Tigers were ranked in the top 10 quite a bit of categories. So here's what Baseball America said: the Tigers have shown solid improvement in their hitting development recently. They ranked in around the top 10 around all plate skill metrics: contact, in zone contact, and chase, while chasing the inside top 10 in average velocity, launch angles, and barrel weight. They showed balance. And that's saying, like, again, this is why you can get excited about somebody like Cole Keith, but more than that, there's other players to get excited for. And those are metrics. Those are things that they got from Hawkeye data. That's tangible data.
Yeah, I mean, they were up there with some of the best team, like up there with the Dodgers, weren't they? Like, this is where you want to be. This company you want to be on.
Yeah.
Now, I don't think that they were. Oddly enough, they weren't in I think the top 10 in the pitching categories, which they did like the subsequent article. But getting some hitting would be key, as we talked about. Get that average offense. So yeah, that's a positive development for sure.
And that's tangible. This is in the farm system. This is not the major league team. I should preference, or I should say that's where it's coming in. It's farms.
Yeah, across the minor leagues with
all right, but I did find. By the way, I did find the Tigers stuff. So I'm going to share the screen real quick. I know Bass is like, come on. Well, I'm not. Why would I bullshit you? There's no reason to bullshit me. Come on, don't bullshit me. Here's where
a chance next year.
Yeah, so there you go. Yeah, the weighted average, third behind the Dodgers and the Yankees, and just ahead of the Phillies, your Detroit Tigers farm hands. And they put that age thing in there for fun, but so it's not all Brad Eldred's tearing it up down there.
Yeah, and also
not Mike Hessman.
Yeah, and there's also they're above MLB average in that category, and this is where I got that quote from. 90% X-File right here. So this is where the Tigers are at right here, just behind the White Sox. So this is why if you get a chance to subscribe to Baseball America,
well worth it.
Yeah, well worth it. And look, and this makes sense for Cleveland. This is a team that's the most disciplined team in the American League last year, and the Tigers are right there. That's also a little mind blowing to me a little bit, because this is a team that has struggled with walks for as long as we've been following them. And here's the chase rate.
Yeah, well, we talked about it before in the minor league side, not to go off in too big of a tangent, but even the guys who aren't necessarily considered prospects, they have a lot of guys who make contact, who draw walks. Jake Holton's, Eliezer Alfonso, guys like that. Carlos Mendoza. They've kind of they've surrounded their prospects with these other minor leaguers who have these skills that you want to see, and I think that's a good way to go about things. So you can
synergistic.
Yeah, you want everybody to be pulling in the same direction and doing the same things, and I think that helps. You said we had some questions on Twitter. I don't know. I didn't.
Yeah. I'll pull them up right now. So yeah, somebody's saying if we took Colt Keith and Henry Malloy out of the minors, the rankings would fall back. But I mean, we have data on Bigby and Young. I mean, they hit the ball hard too a lot, and there is. I mean,
Eddie's Leonard had the hardest hit ball in the entire system, or not in the entire system, in the AAA last year in his 1 month. Then they added him for cash. So yeah, there are guys who hit the ball pretty damn hard. Even Dylan Dingler, he's not a great 90th percentile exit velocity guy because he makes some weak contact, but when he connects, he hits it very hard.
Yeah, there's several. So last year I had sometimes during games someone would give us access to Hawkeye data. We had the link, the same link that they're using during the game. I'm not going to try to say who got us, so I'm getting in trouble.
In AAA and in low A, you get that. They have it on Baseball Savant, so we get all that data.
I was referencing Erie data because Erie data. Yeah. So, so here's where here's from Nick Spillane. The longer that he remains unsigned this winter, how likely do you think the Tigers could get Matt Chapman a 1-year deal, 15 to 20 million deal to bridge the gap for Young or whoever takes over third base?
If I'm Matt Chapman, go ahead. Yes, sorry.
No, I was going to say, who else needs a third baseman desperately, right? So maybe that short deal is out there. I'd be surprised if it's 1 year though. I really would.
You know, I looked it up not that long ago actually to look at the teams. The Tigers were actually the fourth worst team by WAR for third baseman. There were 3 teams worse. The Angels with Anthony Rendon. I don't know if they're going to take on another big third base contract. I mean, Rendon may never play again, but I don't think they would sign somebody. But the Mets were dead last. And, you know, Cohen likes to compete, likes to win, likes to spend money, apparently. So I could see him. The Yankees were not very good at third base. They, you know, they had Josh Donaldson out there. They got some young guys, but maybe they would be a fit. Arizona was one of the bottom 5-6 teams at third base WAR. Now they have Jordan Lawler.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've got Lawler that they may want to bring up and have play third base, but you know, that's a team that was just in the World Series. It seems like, you know what, if they feel like they're a piece away, now's the time to go. So I think there are landing spots for Chapman still. And if I'm him, I'm not taking a 1-year deal unless it's for $40 million. I'll take a 1-year $40 million deal. Other than that, you know, I want security.
I'm with Bass. It's Sperling, live with it, or the Tigers make a trade. That's it. So, I mean, if you know, Bada Bing brings up if the Mets got Chapman, would they part with Brett Batty? I mean, they could use Brett Batty to get more pitching.
They may. I think Alonso is a free agent after next year, so they may, you know, kind of groom him as DH first baseman. Who knows? It's, you know, generally speaking, if there are players that other teams have that we want for the Tigers, those other teams still want those players. So it's kind of tough to say, yeah, they part with them. But I don't know. I think there are landing spots for Chapman is all I mean. I don't think. Yeah. I mean, who we've seen, like Jock Peterson took that 1-year deal, right? There've been some guys who've done that, but I don't know. I don't think Chapman will.
I don't think he's taking. Yeah, I don't think he's doing the Andre Dawson deal. No, I don't think so. And the last question came in from. I mean, Stan had really his New Year's resolution. His New Year's resolution was, is the outfielders get pulled from any game they don't throw the ball to the cutoff man accurately. That's a good one there. Stan, like that New Year's resolution. And then Tom Ives at Tom Ives USA on Twitter. What can the Tigers do to avoid another terrible start to start the season this year? I think, you know, pitching. I think really it's having. I think the starting. I really think having the starting rotation in order and having it ready to go. I think having the depth there off the bat, I think will be key to start off the season well.
Well, you know, another thing is, I'm not gonna go all Harvard president on us here. I forget who to attribute this to. I read this somewhere, but the Tigers' schedule early on isn't real strong. They have some teams they should be able to beat in April, so that would be one step toward getting off to a 500 or better start.
Let's look. They begin the year. Oh, that's spring training. No, we don't want the spring training. Let's see. They start March. Is it start April 1st or March?
It's a March 1st. Yeah, there's
April. March 28th is their first game at the White Sox for 3 games. The White Sox are abject.
Yeah.
Crap.
Then at the Mets, who were not good last year. Home for the A's at the Pirates. Then you got the Twins and Rangers coming in, and at the Twins, at the Rays, Royals, Cardinals to end the month. So, yeah, I mean, you got a couple of tough teams in there, and the Rangers and the Rays, of course, and you never know with the Twins if they're going to be good or not. But that's definitely a doable. You could come out of April above 500 with that schedule.
Yeah, it's not a murderer's row.
Yeah, especially against Chicago.
It's 106 miles to Chicago.
Uh-oh.
Got a full tank of gas.
I think you were going for the Chicago Sox.
Chicago sucks.
There it is.
Yeah. Put the wrong one.
Yeah. No, it for me, it's just always been just that the bats haven't shown up in April for whatever reason. It's been like every year with the Hinch teams, right? It just seems like they're always bad in April, and then they come out and we go, oh, if they just played the way they did after May 10th, they'd win the division. And last year they weren't quite as bad as the year before, but they weren't great. And then they played well in September. So, and I don't know what you do. I don't know what you do to boost the bats early on. Maybe maybe the young kids will give him some energy, right? Like you got Parker Meadows in there from day one. Hopefully you got Colt Keith from day one. You got Riley Green healthy. You got Torque coming off a improved season. Carpenter. You got young blood that making up almost 2/3 of your lineup. Maybe that'll do it.
As far as somebody was mentioning, Richard was asking about Colt Keith being at third base. The last 2 months of the season, he was exclusively at second base. Then Scott Harris was saying that he was trying to get some at bats from Malloy to play in the outfield, but he ended up playing third base. So Keith is something that ever since his arm, it's not the same. It's not the same. He almost like I don't want to say he skips it over there, but he's showing really good range in second base. And so I think as much as the Tigers would probably want him at third, I don't think he can play that position because of the shoulder. It's not nearly the same. It's something that he worked with Alan Trammell and his Arizona Fall League this year, but the Tigers have kind of made their choice of putting him at second base.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't put it past him. I wouldn't completely rule out third base. He may play a little bit of third base still. But yeah, coming out of high school, he was a pitcher too, and he was in the low 90s off the mound. That's a strong arm. But then he hurt his throwing shoulder. I believe it was his throwing shoulder diving into the base. Maybe I'm mistaken about that. But he definitely last year it just looked like it painful a little bit for him to throw. It seemed like he had to really contort himself to get the throws to first base, and he could still let it fly every now and then, but it just didn't look like what we had seen from him when he was younger, earlier in his career. The old 22-year-old now or whatever. But yeah, so but like I wouldn't put it past him that a year an offseason of rehab and we talked to him before last year. He wanted to be a great third baseman. And he may still want that, and he may still be striving for that, and the Tigers may think he can do that. But I think second base makes more sense at this point.
So up top there, Deadly Ninja Bees asked if the Tigers will get the Godfather offer for Skubal at the trade deadline. Now, my question is to Ninja Bees and to you guys is this: should they risk his health and wait for the Godfather offer, or this winter should they get the Godfather 3 offer? Still a decent movie, just not quite with the first two. You know what
I mean? We're all hoping that they're not sellers at the deadline, right? Like we're tired of that. This division is winnable, even if they don't make any more moves. We'd like to see them make more moves. We've talked about it many times. Skubal is your best trade chip. He's your most valuable player. If you want to trade him, if you want to make a big splash, that's the guy you got to trade. But yeah, I don't know. We haven't seen any evidence yet that Scott Harris is that guy, the guy who's going to make that big, dangerous trade, that big risky, young star for young star trade. And not many GMs do that. It's fairly uncommon. So I wouldn't expect it.
2 months ago, I was on board with exploring this. I've gotten less and less about the trade. I think they try to go for it this year, at least make some stab at contention, and Skubal's a big part of that.
As far as Lipsius, somebody mentioned, I think Andrew Lipsius can shake things up. He had a really good spring last year before he got called down. At third, he's serviceable at best, but he's more of a first baseman at this point. He's still a utility guy. The guy I look out for, we've been hearing this, is Ryan Kreidler. Now that he's fully healthy, Kreidler has a glove. He has the range to do it. Yeah. So the Tigers might just stick with even putting Kreidler, because didn't he start at third base last year?
He played some third.
I think so. Yeah, I mean, there's like a handful. I think there are 2 utility guys who are going to make the opening day lineup, and it's probably Ibanez, and maybe not the opening day lineup, but the opening day roster, I should say, the 26 coming out of spring training. It's probably Ibanez and McKinstry, right?
Yeah.
But the Tigers have a handful of other utility guys, and Winslow Perez, Eddie Leonard, Lipsius, Kreidler, and the one thing that sets Kreidler apart is he is a legitimate shortstop. He can play shortstop, and he can also play center field, which he's done before. Now we've seen they did that with Winslow Perez too, but he's more of a second baseman center fielder, and that's a really valuable for Kreidler. That's a really valuable defensive utility player to have if you can play those 2 positions. And so and he's had power. He hit 20 home runs in the minors a couple years ago. That we questioned about the bat overall ability to make contact, but if you could play those two premium defensive positions and maybe hit a few home runs, that's a guy that you're willing to consider bringing north, I think.
Yeah, Eddie's Leonard does have some limitations at short, a little bit his hands, but he does have a good bat, and I wish I was giving you an exciting, sexier option at third base, but I just think that if the Tigers are going to stay pat, this is what they have. They're going to look eternal. And if you look at the way Scott Harris has done his work in San Francisco, it's small incremental moves. And that's what I think is going to happen here. So, I mean, again, stranger things have happened, and who knows? They might have a deal in the works right now, but I really thought there'd be this is like, hey, maybe they'll make a trade because all these teams are so desperate for pitching, but the market hasn't been that way, and it is what it is.
Yep.
So, but you guys were talking about the Godfather offer, and I'm trying right now. There's, can you imagine him, even Scott Harris, wearing a tuxedo similar to the Godfather?
I'm sure there's a picture out there somewhere of him in a tuxedo from some sort of ball.
I don't know. Maybe there isn't. But at any rate, thank you so much for listening to our podcast. Expect longer than I anticipated. There's the debate between there's quite a debate in our chat right now, utility players, on who's going to be on the roster or not. So as far as I'm concerned, it to a certain extent, some of them might be a dime a dozen kind of at this point, but we'll see what happens. But I'm still for time a little bit because I think I found a picture of Scott Harris in a tuxedo. I actually confirmed it. I have found a picture of Scott Harris in a tuxedo, making
in the Godfather.
Yeah, he is being a Godfather.
Is the life we've chosen.
Yeah, it's the life we've chosen, and it's crazy.
I was being naive.
I was looking for it. I was stalling for time while ending the podcast, and I'm telling you this right now. It's one of those things where we're going to end the podcast with this. I think this is a banner moment here. If I can get this all situated, that we have found Scott Harris in a tuxedo, and Scott Harris is going to be it's intimidating with this. And so this is him making a deal at a wedding. It's crazy what we were able to find in our technology. This is him making the deal at a wedding.
Yes,
Scott Harris.
At the wedding. I like that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
God,
look at how they massacred my boy.
Yeah. All right, that was bad. But at any rate, all right, we'll at the Tigers, like I said, there's still much of an off season. Like I said, they're quietly moving around. We'll see what happens. We'll be back next Thursday, and by then I would hope that there's some sort of market activity going on, and so we'll see what happens. But Sunday night, go to the Tigers Minor League Report. I think we'll have that up. Our mysterious, we're kicking off the 2024 interview series with a bang. So, so stay tuned for that. And Scott Harris looks like he brings Ziploc bags to a Chinese buffet.
those big quart size ones too.
He's a vegetarian too, so if he watches the show right now, I bet he's going, son of a bitch.
He's got about 19 egg rolls in one of them. One of them still the fried rice.
Spring roll. Yeah, but the fried rice is not cooked in animal fat. It's cooked in something else. So, and OBK, thank you so much for buying a t-shirt. So there's going to be a GoFundMe going out probably the next couple of days. I'm just working on language and everything. So we're trying to get to spring training. Any donations, all that during the holiday season, thank you. Seriously, thank you so much. We really, really appreciate it. And we appreciate it so much to the point where so there was something that I got. I have two of these, but I got one of these for from a company we're doing Foco. They do like the bobbleheads. So right here in my hand, thanks to you, the listeners, one of the listeners who's listening, one of you guys is going to get one of these bobbleheads. I have
Who
to
is
pick
it?
this. It's a bobblehead of Ty Cobb.
Ah,
Ooh.
So Ty Cobb
nice.
bobblehead. You want to know where we sell swag? I'll tell you right now. Let me get the link here. But so one of our regular listeners, I have to pick this at random. I'll have to figure out how to do this. If you're interested, and you're interested in one of these bobblehead, just leave me or just leave a comment in the section below. We just keep leaving the comment in the live chat, and I'll pick a name out of a hat if you're interested on the next show. So
Awesome.
Ty Cobb bobblehead for free for just supporting the website and just looking at what we do. So Godfather 3, Dan, look, there's no Godfather 3 references on this podcast. The Godfather 3, I finally watched that movie for the first time a few years back. That is a train wreck. Holy crap, that is a train wreck. That is a terrible.
Yeah, there's some issues. There are some issues.
But it does.
Just
I mean,
when
that's
thought they were out, they pulled me back in.
yeah. I mean, that's one of the more iconic lines. Arguably, the second or third most iconic line from the Godfather series, and it comes from that third movie. But you got who's it? Who's Barzini sleeps with the fishes? Who was it? Who sleeps with the fishes?
Yeah.
Luca Brasi.
Luca Brasi, yeah, sleeps with the fishes.
Yeah.
It's a Sicilian mission.
You know what, Dan?
And then-
I gotta give Dan props for sticking with that, but yeah, the incest in the movie and trying to understand it.
That's a little problematic.
Yeah, it's a little crazy. But yeah, just leave a comment and I will, like I said, I'll literally put a bunch of names in the hat. I have the live chat, or just leave a message or comment below in the comment section, and I'll take the names, I'll put them in a hat. I'll have somebody help me here and make them, and do that. So, but by the way, if you want to go to our website, go to TigerMinerReport.com, but then go to the Tiger MLO store and you can see our apparel. I have to update this a little bit. We have gear. So we have the caps. I'm not going to lie. I'm kind of skeptical. I'm a fitted hat snob. So maybe not. If you want to get a dad cap, that's fine. Chill and make pitches. That was something that Alex Lang said. So yeah, but here's a gear. We have stickers. I actually saw somebody driving with the Tiger Minor League sticker a few weeks back.
Wild. Yeah.
That was crazy. That was so crazy. We're just driving around, and so anyways, we got hoodies. It's the Power Through Teespring, so we get a cut of it. So yeah, every bit goes for that. And my wife is chiming in saying that yes, the Godfather 3 is hot garbage. Yes, and she's chiming in from on YouTube. And she's that strong. She was the one that told me that I should finish watching it. And so, but yeah, on that note, we're out of here. We'll see you next Thursday. Have a good week, everybody. Remember, like I said, if you're interested in a Ty Cobb bobblehead right here, just leave a comment below. We thank you for listening. Can we get a Yoop bobblehead? Yes. Or a Funko Pop. I want to create, you can create your own Funko Pops. So maybe I'll get a Funko Pop. That'd be awesome. All right. I know. Have a good night, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Yeah, sticking with us.
Yeah.